All right. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Entrepreneurial Lunch and Learn offered by the Lawrence Enfield Center for Entrepreneurship at Baruch College. I'm Marlene Lee Kang, the Executive Director for the Field Center. The Field Center for Entrepreneurship is a multifaceted division of Baruch College offering free services and programs for the entrepreneurial community. Today's Lunch and Learn webinar is presented today by Nionila Ivanova on recovering your business from sudden trouble. Nionila is a business professional with a demonstrated history of leading high-performing tech teams, managing complex cross-platform engineering products and projects across multidisciplinary products, working with and managing cross-functional on-site and offshore teams. She's currently the founder of IT Creative Labs, which is an initiative that focuses on solving problems and delivering solutions across the entire spectrum of modern business needs. With her expertise, she will discuss how to recover any business from sudden trouble. Thank you so much for being with us, Nionila.
My pleasure. Hello, everybody.
Feel free to tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your business, and then you get to go ahead and take it away and share your presentation.
All right, so I'll start with sharing because I added a quick slide on that as well. All right, so hi everybody. Happy to almost see you all here. I can physically see all your beautiful faces, unfortunately. So a quick note before we start. So I was approached to present on the subject back in January, and in February, at the end of February, we all know that the war has started between Russia and Ukraine, and I do have employees in Ukraine. So that just tells you how much that topic is close to me. But nonetheless, I'll keep it light, very informative. Actually, people pay a lot of money to get that information. So it's amazing that Baruch is doing those programs. Kudos to you, all the organizers for giving students the opportunity to get that information free of charge and directly from people running the businesses. That's amazing. So quickly about me, I have my MBA from Baruch. Yay for me. That was a tough one because I was completing my MBA while also being full-time pregnant and full-time at a new job at a Fortune 500 company. So that was quite a journey. Maybe next presentation I can talk about it. Also, as has been generously mentioned by Marlene, I'm a CEO of IT Creative Labs, a full service technology company. And here you can see our Instagram handle. I also happen to be the CTO of Stars Align, which is actually quite a unique, revolutionary, if I might say, dating application because it combines astrology and dating, and it literally calculates your matching score based on astrology. So quite neat. If you're into any of this, check it out. Stars Align, you can download it as well if you're interested. And I'm also the creator of a channel called ITPM Training. The name speaks for itself. So basically, I've created this blog, Instagram handle ITPM Training, with the main purpose of getting more women into technology and specifically into project management. So simply by following this account, if you're into project management or any related fields and into tech, just by following this account, you can probably become one, just by reading all the content that I give out there. I also motivate women to join the workforce, tech force specifically, etc. So that's one of my missions, to bring more women and mothers into work on their own terms, which is critical. And almost done. I'm also a member of the Forbes Business Council. So Forbes approached me back in 2019 and offered me to join their membership. And so occasionally you can see some of my posts. I'm sometimes quoted on Forbes, and I also write some posts on Forbes as well. So I'm sure you can all search and find all that information. And last, but the thing I'm most proud of course, is being a mother of two amazing girls. So now that you know a little bit about me, let's go ahead and get to the main subject, right? Why are we here? Is so to learn quite a few things. Like I said, the content's going to be all practical. So take notes. I see you munching on the side. put that burger aside. You might want to take notes. Okay, so here I've listed 5 goals, but please, if you don't see one of the goals here that you wanted to take out of this webinar, please ping it in the chat so that, and let me know so that I can incorporate and make sure you get the best out of this webinar. So some of the goals I want you to achieve is, first of all, is as much as possible, turn sudden trouble into manageable risks, critical. Learn how to expect the sudden, which sounds unusual. Learn how to manage the trouble. Of course, get inspired to seize your opportunities and get motivated to go into entrepreneurship and to strive to do better. Like I mentioned, if there's anything else you want to take out of this webinar, ping it in the chat so I can make sure to address it. With that said, we'll move on to our first chapter of the presentation, which I call Surprise, No Surprise, right? So I'm going to talk about the five myths, there are more, but 5 main myths of entrepreneurship that when people realize they're not true, they're taken aback, right? And they run into sudden trouble. So let's make sure you're not one of those people. So myth number 1, running your own business is all about being your own boss. You do whatever you want. Well, the reality of it is running your own business is a lot of hard work that comes with huge responsibility. That means that even though you're not technically reporting anyone as the business owner, you are accountable to all of the employees, to all of your business partners, and to all the stakeholders you deal with within your projects, or business initiatives. So all in all, you have to realize that it doesn't come as a surprise to you and that you don't run into that kind of trouble that, you're supposed to run the show. You are, but you're also taking huge ownership and responsibility for everything that goes on in your business. It's very important to understand this. It's not a light walk. It's not being employed on a W-2 where you're told what to do, right? You report it and you get paid for it. You don't report to anybody and you get paid on what your company and business are able to do, which you as the enabler is the only person at the end who's responsible for the end results. Myth number 2, to be successful, you have to work 24/7 and set similar example to your employees. Less sleep equals more work time. And I think that's still quite a common myth, right? We hear so many stories of overachievers who've been grinding it out and working 24/7 to get to where they are. But if you talk to people who made it at the top, and if you simply even do a quick search, you'll very quickly realize that sleep matters and you have to get plenty of it. Of course, it's easy for me to sit here and tell you you have to sleep, because sleep matters, it's important, where I know for a fact that it's one of the challenges I'm facing as well, not just being an entrepreneur, but also a mamapreneur, right? I have a lot of responsibilities to juggle, and finding me time or getting some extra work done in the after hours seems just too much of a temptation not to take it sometimes. But that being said, I always try to, preach the things that I'm actually doing myself and not just say one thing and do the other. So I have been very serious about my sleep, and I do set the timers. Like I literally would count, okay, if I'm going to bed today at 12 a.m., it means I have to stay in bed until 7 a.m. the next day. So at least 7 hours of sleep is what I allow myself, because my body doesn't, it seems to be doing well with 6 to 7 hours of sleep, but everybody's bodies are different. And I hope you're not snoozing away right now, because it is very important. It's a very important point that you realize that your body needs sleep, and it helps you on so many levels. I mean, we can have a whole new webinar just on sleep, and I don't want to obviously take all that time on it, but please take it seriously. Take that sleep that your body needs, 7 to 9 hours, depends on where you are, and make it a priority. Make it a priority, and then you won't run into surprise of burnout or confusing things or being very low on productivity when you work 24/7. Okay, myth number 3. You have to be 100% ready before you start a business. The reality of it is you will never be prepared for what's coming. So start now, but of course, let's finish our webinar first so you can decide if that's for you and if you're ready in that mental sense of the word, and then hit the ground running. Do not wait for the perfect moment. That perfect moment has already passed, because it doesn't exist. There is no perfect moment to start your business. It could have been January 2020, but then we had COVID. Who knew, right? And then it could have been any other day, and then something happens. So don't wait until you have every single thing planned out. It will never go according to your plan, ever. There will always be surprises along the way, and the best way to be prepared for it is to acknowledge that that's going to happen, and just start that passion or that project or that idea or that initiative, whatever that you've been honing and thinking to do. And don't stress out for not having all your ducks in a row at 100%. Myth number 4. Entrepreneurs are high-risk individuals. That's another one where I feel like it's a very common one, and everybody says, "Oh, I'm not that kind of person to take all that risk." But the fun fact really is that entrepreneurs are very risk averse. You can't even imagine, because you're the owner of everything, and you're responsible for everything and everybody that's under you. So there's no place for being, for gambling. So in the majority of the cases, an entrepreneur will take the least risky path, but not always. Sometimes we do have to make risky decisions. And the way we do it is we really weigh our options, and we try to identify whether the cost of the missed opportunity, of the potential missed opportunity, outweigh the potential losses of a realized risk. And if it does, then we take that risk. I hope it made sense. So when you go into entrepreneurship and you have to face a lot of decisions, don't just go with the most risky decision because that's what entrepreneurs do, because we don't. we take decision making very seriously. We try a number of approaches during our decision making processes, and like I mentioned, in the majority of the cases, we would go with the least risky decision. But sometimes you do have to take that risk. And myth number 5, starting a business requires a lot of financial investments. So probably if we have, a younger audience on, you're probably less exposed to this kind of myth, but who knows, maybe not. Well, the reality is, again, it depends on what your business is, what your business model is. Are you producing something? Are you developing a software product or a physical product or a service? But generally speaking, you can start a business with zero investment. There's so many tools out there, so many opportunities. so many grants to apply for in different areas from different companies that nowadays I almost feel like it's the best path forward, if especially if you want to test your idea, is to start, go ahead and start, but start small, right? Make that first step, make it a proof of concept with the least amount of investment, which can be zero. And technology really enabled us to be able to start a businesses with zero investments, right? There's, like I mentioned, so many tools for everything. You don't need to hire anybody or be an expert in anything. Even a website, you can get a website with no coding on various different platforms and set up your business online that way. So I hope that obstacle is no longer on your way and there's no surprise to you in that regard. Explore your options and find the cheapest way, the cheapest, fastest way to get your idea out there and test it. And that brings us to the next section of our presentation, which is called Common Unexpected Issues of Entrepreneur. So this is a block of issues that entrepreneurs face and oftentimes get surprised, right? Like sudden, to them, it's literally a sudden trouble. So we're gonna go through some of the main ones in an effort to ensure that you will be prepared and you will not run into those issues, and or you will not be surprised, you will be expecting them. So number one, as an entrepreneur, you have to wear many hats. So that being said, if you're still in school, definitely study well across the disciplines. And Baruch did not pay me to include that line in the presentation. That comes from experience. Definitely pay attention at your accounting, finance, marketing, law, all those different courses that you have to take. And if you don't have to take them, because I did my MBA, so I had to take different courses, luckily, thank you. But if you're in more, if you're doing a degree where you don't have to take across different fields, then definitely please do yourself a favor and take on a few extra classes across the disciplines that you don't have on your schedules or that you despise because you have no interest in them. Take them, do yourself a favor, especially if you're going into entrepreneurship. This is a must. And it will serve you well, right? Especially if you're starting. And if you want to start small with zero investment, you don't want to go looking for people and paying accounts to do the bookkeeping and pay your marketers to do the marketing for you and pay lawyers to go over your contracts. You can all manage it yourself in the beginning if you have that base, which Baruch gives an excellent base. Point number two, your business partners might disappoint you. Yes, that's another common issue that takes every entrepreneur by surprise, is that your partners might disappoint you. And like I mentioned here, the worst part is those partners might be and oftentimes are your friends, right? Your former colleagues, could even be your relatives. So there are 2 points to mention here. Point number one, have the agreements in place. Like I said here, formalities go a long way. It's absolutely true. And I know some of you might be sitting on the other line going, yeah, no, there's no need for a contract between me and my sister. We cool, right? But take it from, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but take it from the people who have lived through those experiences and know what they're talking about. It's not hypothetical, it's real. And if you are cool with your sister, mother, brother, sister, mentioned this before, friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whoever, then there shouldn't even be an issue of filling out that agreement. So put it in place so that everybody knows who's doing what, who's responsible for what, and it will make your lives easier. It might even help you avoid the conflict. Maybe, not always, but if the conflict was to arise, you already have all the instruments in place to regulate it and to resolve it in the best possible way for the company, but also for yourselves as people, as individuals. So that's point number one. Point number two is, I hear this a lot. People say, you should never start a business with your family members or with your husband or with your wife. And if you hear this, or if it's one of the things, somebody says to you when you mention you want to start a business with your girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, and that's stopping you, it should not. I completely disagree with that statement, because running a business is really nothing, in a sense, nothing different from building a family. So how are you building a family together and not able to run a business together? It's hard for me to understand. And I know a lot of people will push back that it's different. At the end of the day, it's nothing different. You negotiate, you're two people that have sometimes different opinions that you have to work through, right? So I just wanted to end this point on a positive note, that it shouldn't discourage you from starting a business with somebody you know or trust, and out of fear that you might lose that relationship or that connection. Absolutely not. Put the formalities in place, the agreements in place, and just trust and hope for the better. And I'll give you my personal example. I've had a lot of disappointments, but I also had one good story to share. One of my business partners is my husband, and we've been together for over 16 years. We started our first business together. Oh my goodness, 14, 12 years ago-ish. And we're still together. I have to note, we do not have a formal agreement company-wise in terms of managing our relationship, but we do have another very strong agreement. It's called a marriage certificate. So I think it covers the bases. He can't jump off that boat, neither can I. So I hope that encouraged a little bit. Okay, moving on to the next one. Organizational culture matters. Absolutely. It's a point that gets so overlooked and so underrated so often. And it comes as a huge surprise issue, huge issue. And quite frankly, shocked many entrepreneurs to find out that their organization fell apart because they had no organizational culture, or because it wasn't managed, or because nobody paid attention to it, right? Because it's not something tangible. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs overlook it, especially in the beginning. And sometimes it gets to a point of no return, unfortunately. Sometimes people pivot, realize what the root cause is, and fix it. Very important point here that I wanted to make is that the organizational culture starts with you as the business owner. So don't expect that you start a business and then you start growing, hiring people, and they take care of it and everything happens on its own organically. Absolutely not the case. Everybody will be looking up to you as the leader. Everybody will be looking up to the values that you bring forth within the company, but also you as an individual. Everybody will be looking up to how you treat your employees, how you treat your reports, how you treat your business partners, your clients, your customers, how you treat your work in general. How do you show up every day for that work? Do you show up every day for that work? All of those things will dictate your organizational culture. You don't even need a document writing out how great your culture is. Your actions will show where it is and how it is in reality, right? So if in our previous point I mentioned, do you put the agreements in place here? Of course. As you grow, you want to formalize it and bring it out in writing. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what it would say on your culture pamphlet. Everybody will know and feel it and breathe it every day. And it starts with you. Another huge point, contingency plans. A lot of businesses, I can't even tell you how many businesses run into that unexpected situation of not having a contingency plan. Very critical that you put it in place as soon as you can. And it's a living document, so you update it as you grow, or as your initiatives grow and as your team grows. So one of the questions I propose here is just as a quick example, right? Right now, at this moment, what would you do if your computer stopped working? Think about it for a moment. What would you do? How would your work? That's it. There's no return. Your computer shut down, lost, drowned in the river. You don't have it. How does that impact your business? Can you still run your business? Right, and that's just a quick example. I hope you can relate to it. Being in software development, I sure can relate to it. And I do have an answer. Nothing would happen. I have 300 backups all in the cloud. I can reach it from any device, and anybody can reach me from anywhere. But think through those issues. Think through, even to a point which it sounds very, very sad and negative, but that's just the reality. Think through what would happen to your business if you were to die. I know it sounds very tragic, but that's just, you have to take care of those things. What would happen? Who would be doing your responsibilities? Who would be talking to your clients? Who would have access to your stuff to even manage anything? It sounds very hypothetical, and I hope it stays that way, but as a business leader, you have to think through those issues as well. And nobody tells you about it. So budgeting, another good point. So when you run a business and you start getting profit, of course you will. A lot of money will come your way. Let's manifest this. And as you grow your business and you grow your profits, you want to split your revenue in multiple streams. A big part of it will definitely have to go back into your business if you want to continue growing. Some part of it you want to leave out for taxes. So many taxes. But then a lot of, I'm laughing, but a lot of entrepreneurs don't do this. And then they run into a surprise where they either dumped all their revenue back into growing their business and they have nothing to pay their taxes with, or they've used it for personal expense and they have nothing to, because they don't expect that much amount of taxes. And believe me, they're not small. So make sure you allocate some amount for that. And then obviously you want to leave a part to support yourself, your family, and then definitely have some as a contingency reserve. And I will give you my example here, back to my employees in Ukraine. So as the situation was developing, I was watching it, monitoring it closely, and I was talking to my employees about the possibility of Russia invading Ukraine, and they wouldn't even entertain that thought. They almost made fun of me, saying that I'm being too dramatic, right? But then on February 23rd, my 7 a.m., all of a sudden, I schedule an all hands meeting with my employees, and I asked them, each one of them, to create their own contingency plans. By end of the day, I wanted to have everybody's plans on how they're planning to, if that were to happen, what are they planning to do, how that would impact the work, and I wanted them to pack their what's that called? Their security bag, like the emergency bag. I wanted them to pack their emergency bags and send me pictures, but they did it. So that was 7 a.m. February 23rd. And I also said, and I paid them 2 months payroll in advance, just in case. So that was taken from my contingency reserve, which luckily I had. February 24th, 6 a.m., the war has started. And within a month, I found out that it was nearly impossible to even process a payroll to Ukraine, at least not through the means that I did it just a couple of days ago. Because many of the financial institutions that proclaimed we stand with Ukraine and we're blocking Russia or blocking Belarus, they've, unbeknown to the public, perhaps, they've also blocked Ukraine as well. To them, it was a high risk transaction. So having the contingency reserves and being able to plan ahead, I was able to provide for my employees for the next 2 months, which gave me leverage to find a suitable solution to continue their payroll afterwards. And now I wanted to share this with you. I call it IKMAR. It's a decision-making approach I have developed to enable business leaders to make the best decisions during the worst times. So given this is the method I've developed, it tells you how many situations I had to deal with, how many unexpected sudden trouble I had to go through. So this approach really helped me mitigate a lot of it, including the war in Ukraine. That's why I was proactive and I did what I did before everything happened, even though nobody could expect it till it actually happened. So step number one, the method consists of 5 steps. And step number 1 is identifying your unmanageable risks. So as you work through your risks log, which you might have not, but if you don't keep a log, at least you want to think about what potential risks there might be to your company, to your business, which means you have to not just look, one step further, but you have to look strategically as well. You have to follow the news. You have to connect the dots and understand which part of the news that you hear can impact their business directly or indirectly. So after you identify those risks that I call with no possible mitigation, because they're literally out of your control, right? You conceptualize. You come up with the best and the second best scenarios for dealing with that realized risk. Like if that risk were to happen, what would I do? Or what would be the best thing for me to do as a business leader? What would be the best thing for the business? And then the best and the second best, because if the best doesn't work, you have a follow-up plan. And from then on, you continue to monitor those risks, and you definitely have to identify how severe it is, right? And what is the probability of that risk occurring? And as soon as both hit high, that's what you want to start acting on it. So there's low, medium, high, critical. You don't want to get to a critical point because you might miss it, and you'll be dealing with a realized risk. So you want to, but as soon as it hits high, that's when it's definitely time to act and implement your contingency strategies that you've conceptualized in step 2. And afterwards, you do a retrospective. Absolutely, you look back at what has happened, how it had happened, how you have managed it as a business leader, and what you could have done better. What worked, what didn't work, what could have been done better. And then you improve with each upcoming risk, with each upcoming sudden trouble, you improve to get better, more confident, and more effective. And that concludes my presentation. I thank you so much for your time. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, and I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Nionila, this was really, really very fascinating because I think especially in the current events occurring across the world, it really just makes sense why your plans have developed over time, and now it's actually in practice, unfortunately in practice, but you're seeing the need and you're taking all the right steps. So I really commend you for that. We do have some questions. I'm going to start with the beginning. I'm going to actually take down your screen so we can just talk. I want to see, oh, it won't let me do that. There you go. Would you be able to take it down? That's great. Perfect. So we're going to start at the beginning from your presentation. Tell us what it's like balancing so many high responsibility roles as a professional. You're a creator and a mentor. You participate in so many entrepreneurial activities. And you're also ensuring you give yourself to your personal life. You're a mom as well. What's that balance like?
Yeah, that's the question I get asked the most. The most. How do you manage? So much so that I even wrote a Forbes article about it. So it can give you some insight. But it's all about time management, really. It's all about prioritizing. And I don't start my day like, oh, let's see what this day brings. Surprise, surprise. I can't afford that. I start my day the day before, at least the day before, looking at what's ahead, prioritizing those things. And one trick I can share with you that, I don't think a lot of people realize how powerful it is. But when I prioritize across all of my activities, including my family. So it's not like I have my work list here and I prioritize, then my other work here and then family here. It's all in one. And to me, it makes the most sense because I know the most urgent things that I have to do, regardless, work, family, right? If I have to call a doctor, it's not going to be in that other list. I'll forget. It's going to be right at the top before anything else in my work list, right? So consolidate. That's the biggest advice I can give you is try to plan ahead of time, right? The day before. Consolidate all your activities into one list so you don't have to jump around, remember where you put what note, and leave time for joy. Some call it break time. I like the term joy. And I know a lot of people would nod and be like, yeah, we know it's important, but I'm just too busy today, tomorrow I'll think about it. But my advice is prioritize it just the way you prioritize having lunch or literally going to the bathroom. It's a necessity. So as long as you do at least those three things, your productivity will increase immediately. I promise you.
I liked your first myth about thinking that entrepreneurship is just being your own boss, right? No one to answer to. What was the reality that had you come up with that being a myth? How did that happen for you that you recognize it's not just being your own boss?
When I had my first employee. Yeah, there's a lot of backstory behind it, but I had my first employee. So I mentioned ITPM training, right? But before ITPM training started, I hired a woman of color intentionally. I trained her and I placed her with a Fortune 500 company for a project management position. And because that's one of the purposes of my company, I mentioned that before. It's very important to me. But then when it was time, like I wanted to increase her salary. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. And I was so limited, I couldn't do anything because I had, other vendors through which I subcontracted. I had this limitation, that limitation. And I couldn't tell her really anything. All she knew is she has an employer who, doesn't do much for her other than, obviously, I gave her a shot, but then in her mind, I think, I don't know, but I would imagine it stopped there, right? Which is absolutely not true. And I had to really fight to get her better raises and stuff like that. And that's when it really hits you that you're your own boss, but really you're not. You're now responsible for anyone that you do business with.
So I'm a mom. I'm a doctoral student. I'm a professional. So I understand your myth number 2 about needing sleep. I totally get it. Have you noticed throughout your own initiatives, your own ventures, have your productivity gone up or down? Have you measured any of that due to the lack or increase of sleep?
Absolutely. Yes, of course. What are you talking about?
I mean, I know what my day is like if I don't sleep enough.
Yeah, but there's your body plays a trick on you. So that's why I wanted, and I'm thank you for asking that question, because the first few days when you don't sleep or you don't get enough sleep, you're like extremely productive. You're running on coffee. You're like a superwoman, right? But then day 3, you're dead. What does this button do? So it tricks you and you think, oh, the less I sleep, it doesn't impact me. I'm even better. No, you're not. And you can only run that much on coffee. So definitely. And the way you measure it is your to-do list and your focus, right? So how much you can check off your to-do list and how focused you are when you're doing how long does it take you to do something? And when you're sleep deprived, oh boy.
Okay, that's a really good tip. I may start to recognize where my lags are, how long typical things, if they take me longer due to my lack of sleep. I do notice that, and you're right, that 6 to 7 hour mark is the sweet spot. Once it decreases, all of your productivity decreases. I've noticed that too. You mentioned that being 100% planned is not necessary, especially to get started. Can you talk about the pivots you've experienced in your own endeavors due to getting started without having the full roadmap in front of you?
Oh, absolutely. It's an easy story. I don't even have to think about it because that's how I started. Like I mentioned, I had my own business. I started my first business back in 2008, I think. So from that point on, I always knew that that I will end up in entrepreneurship. And I feel like entrepreneurs know inside of them, they have that, they just know, they have that itching, right? And they're just waiting for the right moment. So was I. And at the time, like I mentioned, I was finishing up my MBA. I did my MBA. I was working at a Fortune 500 company. I had an infant on me. So my plan was maybe within 5 years, like I gave myself around 5 years to get into entrepreneurship. And then I was talking to somebody and somebody asked me that question, like, are you planning? What are your thoughts? I'm like, yes, I'm not staying here for that much longer. Great place to be to learn, but not for me. Corporate, no. I'm gonna go on my own and do something, better, probably within the next 5 years. And so then somebody asked me, well, what are you gonna do? I said, well, I'm thinking to do this, because I have this experience, because I know this and I can do this. And that person simply asked me, why are you not starting now? And I was so taken aback. I was like, well, I have work, I have baby, I have this. And I'm like, well, we have this opportunity. If you want to start, you can. And if you have somebody to bring in, then we can. And I immediately thought of that lady who I actually promoted in that other company I worked for. So I knew she would really do good at that other company. And that's how it started, by somebody just asking me, well, what are you waiting for?
One of my favorite parts of your presentation was about the disappointments you may experience with friends and families as partners. Um, what sort of specific details should go into a formal agreement that ensures that there's an understanding about things like equity, workload, or any other aspects that really make sense, especially at the very beginning?
Yeah, you pointed out some of the main ones. Definitely, you want to have a clear statement on responsibilities, who's responsible for what, because oftentimes if it's two business partners, then unfortunately, then they're trying to compete who's the actual CEO or who's the actual leader here. That's ridiculous, but it happens all the time. So list out your responsibilities so there's no fight who's doing what and who's responsible for what. Definitely in terms of equity, who owns what, definitely in terms of should the separation happen, how it will go, right? Who takes what, who's entitled for what. Perhaps include a non-compete, like if one's leaving, he or she's not allowed to start the same thing within a year, or take your employees, take each other's employees within a year without written consent, and just things like that.
We talk in depth, and something that I enjoy is organization culture and culture style. I personally believe it's a great foundation for establishing how well your business runs, whether it's your own business or you work for an organization. What is your organization culture style? How would you describe it? And what suggestions would you have for newly started businesses for them to figure out what should be their organization culture?
So my organizational culture, I would like to describe by quoting one of my employees, a developer, who funnily enough mentioned that just a few days ago. So we got on a call. He's a developer from Ukraine, and since the war started, I make a point to attend, as almost every meeting that I can, even though technically I don't have to be there. I have all the teams, the project managers, but I make a point to be there, just to hear them, to see them, for them to hear me, and give support in that way as well. And he mentioned that he was reading up an article on one of his favorite games, computer games, and he found out that it's a Swedish game creator, is a Swedish company, and the way they create their game is everybody is involved in the process, like people who have nothing even to do with game development, like just everybody from all parts of the organization. And then he said, so we're like a Swedish family here. And to me, that was the best compliment, to be honest, on my work, because a lot of work goes into this, for sure, a lot of effort and a lot of energy, and it all goes unseen. That's another thing I didn't mention in the presentation, but I probably should have. Nobody's going to thank you for your, do not expect appreciation at all. And no, really. So to me, that was, like a moment of joy, to be honest. So Swedish family is my, apparently that's my organizational culture. And the way you started is write out or formulate the values you want for your company. That's number one. Number two, make sure those values align with your own values. As long as you have those two things and they're in sync, that's a very good point to start a company, because then you're authentic, you're not pretending something you're not, and you're not, bending your company or yourself to make it something it's not, and it never will be.
You talked about taking your income or even your profit and splitting it into specific categories. Is there a general standard on how you decide which category gets what percentage? Some goes to this, some goes to that. Is there something that is sort of the basics of where our aspiring entrepreneurs should really look at and how they divide that up?
I would suggest, first of all, to look at your personal needs, but be realistic. Like, don't go like, okay, I need $1 million every month just because, right, I'm living my life. But you want to start from, well, given you have 0 employees. If you have employees, you have obligations, then that's where you start with your expenses first, right? This is your because your employees is your value, so that has to be taken care of first and foremost. And then comes your individual needs, like how much do you need a month? You take that amount, then you leave out, depending on the profit, but I would say average, well, at least 20%. I mean, if you're starting, I think at least 20% is a good number to have for taxes, and it will grow. This as you grow, it will grow to 30, 35, and if we talk more about it, I'll start crying. And then from the rest, right, you can divide between contingency and what you pour back into the business development. And your contingency, again, it would calculate based on what your obligations are to your employees. So for example, if you have employees, you have to, if I take at least to have 6 months so that my company can sustain itself for 4 to 6 months, should something happen. But you can start smaller. Having some contingency is already great.
So that kind of leads to my last question about the IKMAR. Can you tell us, if you're able to quantify, how less the impact of risk is to a business if a company follows your IKMAR approach? What does that actually look like to them?
Good question. I cannot give you a number because I have been doing it on my own for myself, for my company. But even with the most recent example, I can tell you that should that process approach had not been implemented, I would have lost 70% of my business immediately, just because I wouldn't be able to pay my people, which means there would be nobody to support my projects or my clients, and not even talking about the effect of, clients telling other potential clients what has happened to them.
It's a very significant number of risk and loss. I want to thank you so much. I learned a lot in this presentation, so I really appreciate you being here with us. I want to thank all our participants as well, because they could spend lunch doing something else, and this was really informative and valuable, I hope, to everyone here. I hope to see everyone at our next and last Lunch and Learn for this spring, which is on April 28th, using your strengths to develop your unique selling proposition. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nionila. I appreciate everyone's attendance today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.